The conference room on the 47th floor of Sand Hill Road's most prestigious venture capital firm fell silent as Marcus Thompson clicked to his final slide. 15 of Silicon Valley's most powerful investors sat before him, their collective net worth exceeding $30 billion. These were the kingmakers, the men who decided which technologies would shape the future and which founders would join the ranks of tech royalty. Marcus had rehearsed this moment 1,000 times. His AI algorithm could revolutionize how machines understood human language, making current models look like toys. The prototype had already outperformed Google's latest natural language processing by 340%. The numbers were undeniable. The science was bulletproof. The market opportunity was in the hundreds of billions. But as Richard Blackstone, the firm's legendary managing partner, slowly stood from his chair, Marcus felt the familiar tightness in his chest. Not from nerves about his presentation. He knew his technology was superior. The tightness came from recognizing the look in Blackstone's eyes. The same look he'd seen at Stanford when professors assumed he was there on an athletic scholarship. The same look from recruiters who seemed surprised he could code. The same look that had followed him through every prestigious institution, every technical interview, every networking event in the Valley. "Mr. Thompson," Blackstone began, his voice carrying the casual authority of someone who'd never been told no. "I'm going to be frank with you. This is impressive for someone of your background. But artificial intelligence at this level? Deep learning architectures? Neural networks?" He chuckled, glancing at his colleagues who shifted uncomfortably in their seats. "People like you don't really understand technology at this depth. You can follow tutorials, sure, copy code from GitHub, but creating something transformative? That takes a different kind of mind." The words hung in the air like poison. Several investors looked away. One checked his phone. Another cleared his throat nervously, but none spoke up.
"People like you." There it was. The phrase that had haunted my entire career, wrapped in different words but always meaning the same thing. Not engineers like you, not founders like you, people like you. My hand stayed steady on the clicker, but inside something shifted. Not breaking, I was past that. Something harder. Something that had been forging in the fire of 1,000 microaggressions, 100 missed opportunities, 50 rejected applications despite perfect qualifications. They wanted to see a stereotype, a diversity hire playing startup founder. They had no idea who they were dealing with. While they were deciding my worth based on melanin content, I'd been building something that would expose their entire corrupt system. Every biased decision, every qualified founder they'd passed over, every pattern of discrimination hidden in their investment data. They thought they were rejecting me. In reality, I was documenting them.
To understand the magnitude of what happened in that conference room, we need to go back to where it all began. Marcus Thompson grew up in East Oakland, in a neighborhood where gunshots were more common than graduation ceremonies. His mother, Denise, worked 3 jobs to keep them in a small apartment near the good school district. His father had left when Marcus was 4, another casualty of a system designed to break black families apart. But Marcus had something that couldn't be taken away, a mind that saw patterns where others saw chaos. At age 7, he found an old computer in a dumpster behind a tech company. Most kids would have seen junk. Marcus saw possibility. He spent weeks cleaning it, finding replacement parts at yard sales, teaching himself to solder from library books. When it finally booted up, displaying that ancient Windows 95 logo, it was like discovering fire. By age 12, Marcus was coding websites for local businesses, charging $50 for what design firms build thousands. He used the money to buy better equipment, faster internet, programming books. His bedroom became a command center, monitors stacked on milk crates, cables running everywhere. His mother didn't understand what he was doing, but she understood dedication. She'd find him asleep at his keyboard at 3 a.m., code still scrolling on the screen. High school guidance counselors tried to steer him toward realistic careers. Community college, trade school, maybe IT support if he was lucky. They meant well, in their limited way. They'd seen too many bright kids from the neighborhood crash against invisible barriers. But Marcus had already hacked into MIT's course catalog, was already completing their computer science curriculum online, teaching himself what they wouldn't teach him. The rejection letters came first. Stanford, Berkeley, Caltech, form letters with hollow encouragements about many qualified applicants. Marcus knew his test scores were in the 99th percentile. His GitHub repository had more stars than most graduate students. But his zip code told a different story. One admissions committees could read between the lines. MIT was different. Professor Chun saw past the demographics to the code itself. "This is graduate-level work," she'd said during his interview, scrolling through his projects. "Who taught you this?" When Marcus answered, "YouTube and determination," she'd laughed and fast-tracked his application. But acceptance was just the beginning of the battle. At MIT, Marcus encountered a different kind of isolation. Study groups that somehow never had room for one more. Professors who seemed surprised when he topped the class. Internship recruiters who kept steering him toward diversity programs instead of core engineering roles. The code didn't care what color he was, but everyone else seemed obsessed with it. He learned to navigate these spaces like a spy in enemy territory, switching between dialects depending on the room, dressing carefully, too casual and he was ghetto, too formal and he was trying too hard, always arriving early to claim his seat, establish his presence before assumptions could form, letting his code speak first, hoping excellence would eventually drown out prejudice. The breaking point came during his senior year. Marcus had created an algorithm that could predict stock market micromovements with 89% accuracy. His professor, Dr. Whitman, called it the most innovative work I've seen in 20 years of teaching. But when a venture capitalist visited campus looking for promising projects, Whitman presented the algorithm as a collaborative effort with Brad Chun, a mediocre programmer whose father happened to run a hedge fund. Marcus watched from the back of the room as Brad stumbled through explaining code he'd never written, concepts he didn't understand. The VC was impressed. Brad got the meeting. Marcus got a lesson in how the valley really worked. Merit was just marketing. The best technology didn't win, the best connected did. And connections were inherited, not earned. After graduation, the pattern continued. Google hired him but kept him on infrastructure projects while his white classmates got assigned to AI research. Facebook's recruiter was enthusiastic until the video interview, then suddenly the position was filled. Amazon offered him half the salary they'd posted, claiming budget adjustments. So Marcus did what he'd always done. He built his own path. Working nights while holding down a day job at a small startup, he began creating something extraordinary. Not just another app or platform, but an AI system that could analyze communication patterns and detect bias in real time. Feed it emails, Slack messages, performance reviews, and it would surface discriminatory patterns invisible to human perception.
They never see us coming. That's our superpower, really. They're so busy looking at our skin, calculating our threat level, measuring us against their stereotypes, that they never notice what we're actually building. Every slight, every dismissal, every "you're so articulate" just adds fuel to the fire. Late nights in my Tenderloin studio, surrounded by towers of humming servers I'd bought with credit cards I couldn't afford, I'd think about my ancestors, enslaved people who learned to read in secret, risking death for knowledge. Black mathematicians calculating moon landings while being denied coffee at lunch counters. Inventors whose patents were stolen, scientists whose discoveries were credited to others. I was part of a long tradition of excellence despite exclusion. The algorithm grew more sophisticated each day. I fed it decades of venture capital data, scraped from public filings, leaked documents, Freedom of Information Act requests. The patterns were damning. Black founders received 1% of VC funding but generated 35% higher returns. Women-led startups outperformed all-male teams by 63% but got 2% of investment dollars. The Valley's meritocracy was a lie backed by data they'd never bothered to analyze. But I needed more than data. I needed a moment, a stage, an undeniable demonstration that would force them to see what they'd been blind to. Every time I pitched to another VC, another accelerator, another angel investor, I was gathering evidence. Recording conversations. California's two-party consent law has interesting loopholes for discrimination cases. Documenting patterns, building a case that would be impossible to ignore. The prototype evolved beyond my original vision, not just detecting bias but predicting it. Input a founder's profile, education, experience, innovation metrics, and it would forecast their funding probability. Change nothing but race or gender, and watch the percentage plummet. The math was beautiful in its ugliness, elegant in exposing illegality. Some nights, exhaustion would win. I'd stare at my reflection in the black screen, wondering if I was just another angry black man tilting at windmills. Maybe the counselors were right. Maybe I should have taken the IT support job, the steady paycheck, the quiet life. But then I'd remember Marcus Garvey's words, "If you haven't confidence in self, you are twice defeated in the race of life." This wasn't just about me anymore. Every black kid in East Oakland who was told to be realistic. Every woman programmer asked if she was in marketing. Every Latino founder steered toward ethnic markets. Every Asian engineer hitting bamboo ceilings. We were all data points in their discrimination matrix, and I was building the algorithm to decode it.
The email arrived on a Tuesday morning, buried between spam and startup newsletters. DataVision Ventures, a mid-tier VC firm, was hosting an innovation showcase for artificial intelligence startups. Open application, democratic process, best technology wins. Marcus almost deleted it. He'd been to enough of these cattle calls to know how they ended. But something in the wording caught his attention. The organizing partner was Jennifer Kim, one of the few Asian women in Valley Venture Capital. Marcus submitted his application with low expectations, but Kim called personally 2 days later. "Your algorithm is intriguing," she said carefully. "I'd like to understand it better." Off the record, they met at a coffee shop in Palo Alto, away from the Sand Hill Road power corridors. Kim listened intently as Marcus explained not just what his AI could do, but why he'd built it. "I've been tracking funding patterns for 5 years," Kim admitted quietly. "The bias is systematic, but proving it is impossible. The partners always have excuses. Founder fit, market concerns, team dynamics, soft rejections that hide hard prejudices." She paused, studying him. "Your algorithm could change everything, but you need to be strategic about revealing it." For the first time since MIT, Marcus found an ally who understood both the technology and the politics. Kim coached him on VC psychology, the specific triggers that opened checkbooks, the subtle codes that signaled insider status. She introduced him to other overlooked founders, building an underground network of the underestimated. The innovation showcase was Marcus's first real shot. Unlike closed-door pitches, this would be public. 200 attendees, including journalists, other founders, potential customers. Harder to dismiss someone when witnesses were watching. Marcus refined his presentation, focusing on commercial applications while keeping the bias detection capabilities hidden for now. The night before the showcase, Marcus's mother called. "I don't understand what you do," she said, "but I understand who you are. You're a warrior, like your grandfather. He integrated lunch counters. You're integrating something bigger." Marcus felt the weight of generations on his shoulders. This wasn't just a pitch. It was a reckoning. The showcase venue thrummed with nervous energy. 20 startups, 10 minutes each, rapid-fire dreams and demos. Marcus watched founder after founder take the stage. Mostly white, mostly male, mostly pitching variations of existing ideas. Uber for pets, Airbnb for storage, LinkedIn for teenagers. Safe iterations that wouldn't disturb the status quo. Then his name was called. Marcus walked to the stage, feeling every eye track his movement. The skepticism was palpable, a frequency only certain people could hear. He clicked to his first slide, a simple question. What if AI could see what humans refuse to? The room shifted slightly, curiosity competing with discomfort. Marcus began to speak, his voice carrying the controlled power of someone who'd learned to package revolution as evolution.
Standing on that stage, I felt the duality every black person in white spaces knows. The performance of competence that had to be flawless. One stumble, one moment of uncertainty, and I'd confirm their biases. But I'd been performing my whole life. Code switching wasn't just language, it was survival. I showed them the surface layer first. Customer service applications, HR optimization, marketing insights. Safe, profitable, non-threatening. Watch the venture capitalists lean forward, seeing dollar signs instead of justice. Let them think they were discovering gold when I was handing them dynamite. But I couldn't help myself. In the final minute, I switched to a live demo. Let's analyze communication patterns in real time, I said, feeding the algorithm a dataset I'd prepared. Anonymized, of course. Legally bulletproof. The screen filled with patterns, clusters, statistical significance. Notice how certain linguistic markers correlate with outcome disparities, I said casually. Imagine the applications for ensuring workplace equity. The room's energy shifted like a tide pulling back before a tsunami. Some faces showed recognition, the implications hitting like cold water. Others remained oblivious, still calculating market size. But I saw Jennifer Kim in the third row, the smallest smile on her face. She knew what I'd just done. Planted a seed in public soil where it couldn't be quietly uprooted. The timer rang. 10 minutes up. The applause was polite, uncertain, the sound of people clapping while thinking. I walked off stage knowing I'd crossed the line. No more hiding in the shadows, building in secret. I'd announced myself to the valley. Now came the hard part, surviving their response.
The backlash began within hours. Marcus's presentation had been live-streamed, and clips started circulating on tech Twitter with commentary ranging from intrigued to hostile. Interesting approach to NLP, some said, but others were less kind. Another diversity play disguised as innovation, solving problems that don't exist. Reverse discrimination wrapped in algorithms. The next morning, Marcus woke to find his personal website under DDoS attack. His GitHub repositories were flooded with bogus issues and pull requests, attempting to bury his actual code under garbage. Someone had doxed him on 4chan, posting his address, his mother's workplace, photos from his social media. The message was clear: stay in your lane. But the attacks had an unexpected consequence. The tech media, always hungry for controversy, picked up the story. Black founders' AI startup faces coordinated harassment, ran in TechCrunch. The article was sympathetic but damaging in its own way, framing Marcus as a victim rather than an innovator. Venture capitalists who might have funded technology wouldn't touch controversy. DataVision Ventures, despite Jennifer Kim's advocacy, passed on investment. The partners think you're too political, she told him apologetically. They want returns, not revolutions. Other firms were less polite. Emails unreturned. Meetings canceled last minute. One associate accidentally forwarded an internal thread where partners discussed the optics of funding Marcus. We have our diversity investment for the quarter, someone had written. The isolation was suffocating. Marcus's network, carefully built over years, began distancing themselves. Former classmates stopped responding to messages. Industry events suddenly had limited capacity when he tried to register. The unspoken message echoed through Silicon Valley's glass towers. He'd violated the cardinal rule. Don't make them uncomfortable. Don't name the thing everyone knows but agrees not to discuss. Financial pressure mounted. Credit cards maxed. Savings depleted. The servers running his algorithm cost $2,000 a month, and his day job barely covered rent. Marcus started driving Uber at night, coding in his car between rides. Passengers in the back, heading to parties in Nob Hill or flights to Davos, had no idea their driver held patents that could revolutionize their industries. One particularly dark night, after a drunk tech bro had spent the ride explaining why diversity hires were ruining innovation, Marcus sat in his car outside his apartment, engine off, staring at his laptop. The algorithm hummed on the screen, elegant and powerful and utterly worthless without capital to scale it. He thought about his mother, working her third job at 70. His cousins in Oakland, brilliant minds trapped in cycles of poverty. His grandfather, who'd fought for integration only to see his grandson still fighting for recognition. The temptation to quit whispered seductively. Take the Google offer. Join the machine. Collect the paycheck. Buy the condo. Become another black face in a diversity report, smiling from carefully staged photos while doing nothing to change the system. It would be so easy, so safe, so expected. But then Marcus remembered something Jennifer Kim had said. They want you to quit. Your exhaustion is their strategy. He opened a new terminal window and began coding with renewed fury. If they wouldn't fund him, he'd bootstrap. If they wouldn't platform him, he'd build his own. If they wanted war, he'd give them revolution. The breakthrough came from an unexpected source. A data breach at one of Sand Hill Road's largest firms leaked thousands of internal emails. While media focused on the salacious gossip affairs, backstabbing, expense account fraud, Marcus saw opportunity. Legal public data, documenting years of investment decisions, evaluation criteria, and yes, the bias underlying it all. He fed the leaked data to his algorithm, cross-referencing with public information, building a comprehensive map of discrimination in venture capital. The patterns were even worse than he'd hypothesized. Qualified black founders rejected 94% of the time. Women-led startups requiring 40% more traction for equal funding. Asian founders stereotyped into specific verticals. The Valley's meritocracy myth shattered by its own data.
They say success is the best revenge, but they're wrong. Evidence is the best revenge. Cold, hard, mathematically irrefutable evidence that turns their weapons against them. Every email where they discussed culture fit. Every evaluation where identical pitches got different scores based on founder demographics. Every time they chose potential over proof when the founder looked like them and demanded proof over potential when they didn't. I became a digital archaeologist, excavating their buried biases. The algorithm evolved from detection to prediction to prescription. Input, founder profile, startup metrics, innovation index. Funding, probability by firm, optimal pitch strategy, and most damning, what would need to change about the founder, not the startup, to increase success rates. The nights blurred together. Code, coffee, collapse, repeat. My apartment became a server farm. Machines stacked on every surface, cables snaking across floors. The heat was suffocating, fans running constantly, electricity bill climbing toward eviction notice territory. But I was close, so close to something undeniable. My mother visited once during this period, surveyed the chaos, the empty ramen containers, the manic energy. "You're scaring me," she said simply. "This isn't healthy." But when I showed her what I was building, explained how it could help every kid who looked like me, she nodded slowly. "Your grandfather went on hunger strikes," she said. "I guess this is your version." The tech community's cruelty escalated. Anonymous death threats, racist memes with my face photoshopped, coordinated one-star reviews of any app I'd ever worked on. They called me everything but what I was, a threat to their comfortable corruption. But each attack just proved my algorithm's necessity. They were generating training data for their own downfall. I started reaching out to journalists, the few who cared more about truth than access, showing them previews of what my algorithm had discovered. Most were interested but terrified. This would end my career, one admitted. I'd never get another source in the valley. The power structure protected itself through fear as much as capital. But I kept building, adding features, improving accuracy, creating visualizations so clear that denial became impossible. The algorithm could now scan any communication and identify discriminatory patterns in real time. Upload a pitch deck rejection, see the bias score, input a job posting, watch it flag problematic language, feed it a venture firm's portfolio, get a diversity audit they'd never commissioned themselves.
Everything changed with a single email from Alex Chin, CEO of Prometheus Technologies. Not a venture capitalist, not an angel investor, but the founder of a Fortune 500 tech company who'd built his empire outside Silicon Valley's incestuous ecosystem. "I've been watching your work," the message read. "The Valley rejected me 20 years ago for similar reasons. Let's talk." The meeting was set for Prometheus's Seattle headquarters, a deliberate choice away from Sand Hill Road's influence. Marcus flew up on a red-eye, his algorithm running on laptops in his carry-on, too valuable to check. The contrast between Prometheus's campus and typical Valley offices was immediate. Actual diversity in the lobby, not just in marketing materials. Chun was waiting in a conference room that looked more like a library than a tech space. Books everywhere, comfortable chairs, natural light. "Show me everything," he said simply, not the pitch deck version. The real thing. For 3 hours, Marcus demonstrated his algorithm's full capabilities. Chun asked technical questions that showed he understood both the code and its implications. "They called me too Asian for leadership," Chun said finally. Said I lacked executive presence, which meant I didn't golf at their clubs or laugh at their jokes. So I built something they couldn't ignore. But you're building something they can't escape. He leaned back, studying Marcus. "I want to acquire your technology, not invest. Acquire. Full integration with Prometheus's infrastructure." The number Chun wrote down made Marcus's hands shake. Not just life-changing money, but generation-changing money. Enough to pull his entire family out of poverty. Enough to become what he'd always dreamed. Not just successful, but powerful. But Chun wasn't finished. "There's a condition. You run the division. Full autonomy. And we deploy this technology across every Prometheus platform. Hiring, partnerships, supplier diversity, everything." Marcus felt the world tilt. This wasn't just an exit. It was an entry into rooms where decisions were made, into positions where he could encode justice into algorithms used by millions. "What about the venture firms?" he asked. "The ones who rejected me?" Chun smiled for the first time. "We're about to become their biggest limited partner. They'll take our calls, and our algorithms will be watching every decision they make." The due diligence was intense but respectful. Prometheus's lawyers and engineers examined every line of code, every patent filing, every potential liability. They found what Marcus already knew. The technology was bulletproof, the applications limitless, the market desperate for solutions even if they didn't know it yet. Word of the acquisition leaked before signing. Marcus's phone exploded with calls from venture capitalists who'd ignored him for years. Suddenly, they saw potential. Suddenly, they had openings in their portfolios. Richard Blackstone himself left a voicemail, his tone carefully modulated. "Perhaps we were hasty in our initial assessment. Let's revisit the conversation."
The irony was delicious. The same men who'd said I couldn't understand deep technology were now desperately trying to understand how they'd missed it. But I wasn't interested in their validation anymore. I'd transcended their game by changing the rules. Sitting in the Prometheus boardroom, surrounded by lawyers finalizing terms worth more than entire venture funds, I thought about every rejection, every insult, every moment of doubt. They hadn't broken me. They'd forged me. Made me harder, smarter, more dangerous to their comfortable corruption. My mother cried when I told her the number. Not from joy, from relief. The weight of generations of struggle finally lifting. "Your grandfather would be proud," she said, "but he'd ask what you're doing next." She was right. Money was just fuel. Power was the engine, and I was about to drive it straight through their glass ceilings. The algorithm had evolved beyond bias detection into bias prevention. Integrated with Prometheus's systems, it would touch millions of decisions daily. Every resume screened, every loan approved, every opportunity distributed would pass through filters designed to expand access rather than restrict it. Mathematical justice, scaled globally. But the real transformation wasn't in the code or the cash. It was in the calls from young black founders who'd seen the news. "If you did it, maybe I can too." The emails from women engineers inspired to build rather than accept. The DMs from every underestimated innovator who suddenly saw a path forward. I'd become what I'd never had, proof that the system could be beaten by being built better.
The acquisition closed on a Friday afternoon, $2.3 billion in cash and stock, the largest exit for a black founder in technology history. But Marcus Thompson wasn't celebrating in Vegas or buying Lamborghinis. He was in a conference room with Prometheus's engineering team, architecting the integration that would fundamentally change how Silicon Valley operated. Within 6 months, the Marcus algorithm, as tech media had dubbed it, was processing over 100 million interactions daily across Prometheus's platforms. Companies using their HR systems saw qualified candidate pools expand by 400%. Investment platforms flagging bias helped redirect $800 million to previously overlooked founders. The technology designed to expose discrimination was now preventing it at scale. The venture capital firms that had rejected Marcus found themselves in an uncomfortable position. Prometheus, as a major limited partner, required all fund managers to use the algorithm for portfolio analysis. The results were devastating and public. Firms with the worst diversity metrics saw institutional investors fleeing. CalPERS pulled $2 billion from funds that couldn't explain their bias scores. University endowments followed suit. Richard Blackstone's firm was among the hardest hit. Their internal emails, analyzed by the algorithm, revealed systematic discrimination going back decades. Limited partners demanded answers. Portfolio companies distanced themselves. Within a year, the mighty Blackstone Ventures had collapsed, its partners scattered to the winds of accountability. But Marcus's true triumph came in what he built next. Using his acquisition proceeds, he launched Thompson Futures, a $500 million fund exclusively for underrepresented founders. Not charity, not quotas, just capital deployed based on merit measured by mathematics rather than melanin. The fund's first year returns exceeded 340%, proving what Marcus had always known. Talent was equally distributed, opportunity was not. The ripple effects spread beyond Silicon Valley. Marcus open-sourced core components of his algorithm, allowing activists worldwide to audit their own institutions. Universities used it to examine admissions. Governments analyzed hiring practices. Media companies studied representation. The tool designed for one man's vindication became a global instrument of justice. Marcus bought his mother a house in the Oakland Hills, overlooking the neighborhood where he'd found that first computer. But Denise Thompson still worked, now as director of a coding academy Marcus funded for underserved youth. Retirement is for people who've finished their purpose, she told him. We're just getting started.
They ask me if I'm satisfied, if revenge was sweet, if proving them wrong filled the void their rejection created. But they're asking the wrong questions. This was never about them. It was about us. Every black kid told they're not technical enough. Every woman founder offered marketing roles instead of CEO positions. Every immigrant entrepreneur steered toward convenience stores instead of unicorns. I didn't build an algorithm. I built a mirror, held it up to their faces and forced them to see what we've always seen. The ugliness of arbitrary barriers, the waste of dismissed potential, the crime of dreams deferred by demographics. Standing in my office at Prometheus, looking out at Seattle's skyline, I sometimes video call my younger cousins in Oakland, show them the view, but more importantly, show them the code. Explain how functions become features, become fortunes. Not to brag, but to blueprint. To make them believe what took me too long to learn. We don't need their permission to be excellent. The algorithm continues to evolve, learning, adapting, improving. But its core mission remains constant. Make bias visible, measurable, preventable. Turn prejudice from opinion to data, then delete the corrupted files. Debug discrimination one line at a time.
Marcus Thompson's story reverberates through Silicon Valley and beyond, a testament to what happens when brilliance meets bias and refuses to blink. His algorithm has now analyzed over 50 billion interactions, prevented an estimated million discriminatory decisions, and redirected $12 billion in capital to overlooked communities. But numbers tell only part of the story. The real legacy lives in the transformation of an industry once proud of its insularity. Venture firms now compete on diversity metrics, knowing that bias scores affect their ability to raise funds. Tech companies integrate fairness algorithms from day one, understanding that discrimination isn't just wrong, it's expensive. The old boys network still exists, but now it operates under algorithmic supervision. Marcus continues to innovate, pushing the boundaries of ethical AI. His latest project aims to identify and nurture talent in unexpected places: prisons, refugee camps, rural communities. Genius doesn't check zip codes, he says. We just need to debug the system that does. Thompson Futures has backed 200 companies, generating average returns of 400% while maintaining a founder base that's 70% underrepresented minorities. But perhaps the most profound change is in the conversations happening in Oakland classrooms, Atlanta barbershops, Houston community centers. Young Black technologists no longer speak in hypotheticals about what might be possible. They point to Marcus Thompson and say, "When I build my unicorn, not if. The path has been coded. The algorithm has been proven. The only variable left is execution." Silicon Valley tried to mythologize Marcus's story to make it about individual exceptionalism rather than systematic change. But Marcus refuses that narrative. "I'm not special," he insists in every interview. "I'm evidence. Evidence that there are thousands of me being wasted by systems too stupid to see value beyond their biases. My success isn't the point. The algorithm that prevents the next me from being rejected is the point."
They want to make me a token, the exceptional Negro who made it despite the odds, the one they can point to when accused of discrimination. See, we're not biased. Marcus Thompson succeeded. But I'm not playing that game. I'm not your model minority or your diversity success story. I'm a virus in your system, self-replicating through every young mind that sees my story and realizes the game is rigged but not invincible. Every algorithm I release, every founder I fund, every bias I expose multiplies the infection. Soon there won't be enough antibodies in your old boys network to fight us off. My grandfather integrated lunch counters with sit-ins. I'm integrating cap tables with algorithms. Different methods, same war. And we're winning, one function at a time.
If Marcus Thompson's story teaches us anything, it's that brilliance plus persistence plus strategy can overcome even the most entrenched systems of oppression. But it shouldn't require superhuman effort to achieve human recognition. No one should have to build an algorithm to prove they deserve opportunity. Right now, in a classroom in Compton, a coffee shop in Seoul, a favela in Sao Paulo, someone is writing code that could change the world. But between them and impact stands an army of gatekeepers checking the wrong credentials, measuring the wrong metrics, seeing the wrong signals. Every day we allow bias to block brilliance. We all lose. Innovations that could cure diseases, reverse climate change, expand consciousness die in the minds of the dismissed. You don't need to be a coder to debug discrimination. Challenge the patterns in your own organization. Question why your network looks like you. Advocate for the overlooked. Amplify the unheard. Invest in the underestimated. The algorithm for justice isn't complex. It just requires conscious execution. Marcus Thompson was told, "People like you don't understand real tech." He responded by building technology that understands people better than any system before it. He turned rejection into revolution, discrimination into data, bias into $1 billion business. But he's not unique. He's just the first of many, the proof of concept for a generation that refuses to accept artificial limitations on their natural gifts. The future isn't in Sand Hill Road's glass towers. It's in the spaces they've ignored, the minds they've dismissed, the innovations they lack the imagination to see. Marcus didn't just beat their game, he built a better one. Now it's your turn to play. What algorithm will you write? What system will you debug? What barrier will you break? The code is open source. The pathway is proven. The only thing left is to execute. Remember, they can't stop what they can't see coming, and they never see us coming.